does that opening theme music, hey? I know you guys love it. Yes, it is another episode of Aussie Tech Security. Welcome. This is episode 10. And yes, we've got another week of talking tech security in depth with Roger. And let's say hi to him right now. Hi, Roger.
Hey, morning, Glenn. How are you
doing? Yeah, not too bad, thank you. What's been happening this week with you? Busted any bad guys?
No. Just been overly busy for some reason.
Yep, good stuff.
So it's nice.
It is. The show is brought to you by athwebhosting.com.au for all your hosting web needs. Go and check us out. And also from rniconsulting.com.au, and you can contact Roger at SME Security and me at Aussie Tech Heads. Now, Roger does seminars, Lunch and Learn, and the next one is March 17. So you better hurry up because that's today.
yeah, that's on in about an hour and a half's time.
Yes,
Yay!
But it will be recorded. So
yes.
if you contact Roger at what's your email, or where can we find that, Roger? For the
Roger at rogersmith.com.au. And the recordings are all on YouTube.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so
easy.
And also they're on Google Hangouts as well. So.
Oh, do you know? Have you got a vanity YouTube channel?
Not yet, no.
Okay, well, it's on YouTube. Search for Lunch and Learn.
Yeah, that'll probably find it, or just digital security. So
yeah, and digital security on Facebook as well for Roger.
Yes, yep.
All right, good stuff. Now let's get into it. Now we're going to talk about. Now this is something I didn't know what it's all about, but Roger is going to enlighten me and all of us. What is pen testing? That's the short term that the professionals use. But Roger's going to tell us the long form.
Pen testing. Wow.
I thought,
look, I have a pen. I'm going to test it.
Scribble on a bit of paper for 5 minutes. Yes. What is it?
Okay, pen testing is literally physically testing an environment to make sure that it hasn't got any compromises in it. One of the things that came out of some of the stuff I've been following, so Target, Mashley Addison, Sony, none of them had done a pen test on their systems.
Right.
So a pen test would have actually focused a lot more light on some of the problems that could be compromised, and they may have done a pen test to actually stop it from happening.
So now when you, so it's a penetration test on your system. So I suppose, okay, so say a small business, because I don't know what sort of systems a big business would have, but a small business, little router connected to Telstra, a website on a shared host. That's probably about all they've got, isn't it? Maybe a couple of mobile devices. What should you be? What should you be penetrating? Like, what is there to penetrate? Like, isn't Telstra secure? Isn't your web shared host there looking after everything?
No.
Right. Is 4G secure even then?
Well, 4G is secure because it's frequency hopping, so which means that it's very hard for a criminal to actually come in on a phone connection. Right. But if you've got a NBN connection or an ADSL2 connection or even VDSL2, which is what we get in Canberra, then you have a permanent presence on in the digital world that you really need to make sure that connection is safe. What we find with most clients under 20 people, they have this attitude that yes, we're connected to the internet and that's where it stops.
Yes.
And they will quite happily go down to Harvey Norman or Dick Smith or whatever and buy a router, little cheap and nasty router that does the job. Yes, it does the job, and it does the job well, except if you have information inside your network that someone may have a tendency to focus on. That's when everything really goes out the window, and it really does come down to doing a risk management on how important your information is. If you're collecting, for instance, marketing information for your organization and you're collecting everything that you can about a client, then that to a digital criminal is a goldmine, and you then have to have a risk analysis done on, if that gets out, how much damage is it going to do to your business?
So most of the time when a criminal gets into the systems, what would you estimate? This is probably like how long is a piece of string, but say someone finds a way into your system and they go, this is a little gold mine in here. Now they're probably more likely to just let sleeping dogs lie, just be nice and quiet, just access it when they want, or they try and destroy?
No, they won't try and destroy. In most cases, the purest of the cyber criminals will actually leave the information there and take a copy of it.
Right.
And they will then take it off to the dark web, and they will quite happily sell it. If you're collecting things like bank account numbers, routing numbers, if you're using overseas banking, SWIFT codes, if you're using overseas banking, credit card numbers, all of that sort of information, and you're capturing it in plain text, then you need to have a way of protecting that. And the best way to do that is to work out what is your risk of it being stolen and do something about it.
So I guess, though, like just taking that to the next level is say someone gets hacked on their credit card, which is very, very common. Now, most of the time the banks will stump up.
Yes.
Yeah. So do the banks go looking at why this information is there? Like, okay, is there any investigations do you think is, okay, well, Joe Blogs has shopped here, like there is, say, with a health scare, they ring up and say, what did you eat the last 3 days? And where'd you get it from? Do the banks go, where did you spend this? Where'd you go the last 3 days? Blah, blah, blah. And if everything's pointing back to Joe Blogs, then he's been targeted. Does that happen?
Right. That's one of the ways they do it. Most I suppose high-end security companies have actually got a presence in the dark web, and they are looking at the chat rooms and all this sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where some of the information will come from, and it'll be. The other thing that happens in the dark web is you'll get this bragging right capability because you've hacked someone, you've got the information, and they actually say, well, I hacked Joe Blogs. This is the information I got, and I'm selling it for X amount of dollars. And everybody then bids on it, or I'll take some of that, or whatever. So it does become rather I suppose it's a market presence more than anything else to make sure that if that information does come out, then in a lot of cases, people just don't realise it came from them.
Yes, yeah, right. So you're storing your credit cards. Your customer rings up, they pay by credit card. You store it in the computer on their customer file, and it's all obviously just be all text. I guess I gather. So is a normal Windows firewall going to stop people getting into your computer? A paid firewall, zone alarm?
No. Yes and no. There's a number of systems that are available that you can put in place. One of the things that we are noticing more and more, that we're all interested in the north-south facing access to your network. So your firewalls, your VPNs, your wireless, for instance, which is the north-south facing. Nobody actually worries about what happens once they get inside the network, which is the east-west components.
Right.
Which means that if they get in somewhere, they may come in through your firewall, they may come in through your wireless, they may come in through a VPN, they may come in through an exploit that's coming through email. But once they're in it, they will then go across the network before they do anything else. And that information that they're transferring across the network is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the information they're gathering is what's on this PC, what's on that server, what's on this cloud connection. And that information then becomes the information they're going to extract. And what they do is they're very patient about it, and they'll do it for let's say 10 days, and then they will get everything in one place and they will extract it all at once.
Right.
So the only time that you may catch it, if you don't catch any of the transfers going on inside the network, is when it actually leaves the network. And if you have only got a router you bought from Dick Smith's, then it's not going to catch that information.
Well, because I remember one of the early episodes that we did, you were saying that you got to go for something like a Cisco or something that's made in the US, because made in Taiwan or wherever, backdoors are plenty.
Yes, this is very right. We've found that there's a number of it's usually the high-end people who are making them, and you can get a Cisco for $350 Australian, which is a good investment, and it does a lot more than what you normally get from Dick Smith's. But it also goes up to a $1,500 job that a lot of people can't justify getting for a small business of 5 people.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, if you think about it, if you do get hacked, and this is where I suppose economies of scale come into it, is if you get hacked and that information goes out, how much money are you going to be paying out to compensate for what happened?
Yeah.
You're losing reputation. You may lose actual money from your bank accounts. You may lose your staff may sign off and decide they don't want to work with someone who's not going to protect their information. These are the repercussions of what can happen. And it's not just the physical data that they steal. It's the actual impact on the business that people just don't put a monetary value on.
So the $300 Cisco's, is there a learning curve to installing one of those, or are they plug and play?
No, well, with the 300, Cisco went to a web-based interface about 5 years ago. And you can now do most of it from a web-based. You can still do it from a command line, but most of it is now web-based. Yeah. Well, us old people can actually program a Cisco router from the command line in about 10 minutes.
I remember
looking at a web-based system, probably about the same amount of time.
I had to do an old Telstra modem once, and the only way to change the DNS, I think it was, inside it was from the command line in the terminal. I went, oh. But it was successful. So there's a little bit of setup involved with the with the routers, and I suppose there'd be instructions you can follow them.
Oh, again, the $350 Cisco literally has a thought bubble with every component of a setting.
Right.
So you can go over the top of it and it'll say put in username here.
Yeah.
Great.
So
really easy to use.
So not that we want to bag anyone, but the router's probably not to use. TP links, the D links.
TP links, D links, Netcom,
Netgear.
Netgear.
Okay. Yep. Anything not made in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You get the idea. All right.
Yeah.
So now, before we go on to the actual the testing and whatever, I just wanted to ask. So you said the 4G was pretty secure because it hops around, which is understandable. Have you got any experience now with this new Telstra Air? Is that as insecure as Wi-Fi?
Yeah, the Wi-Fi, the mobile Wi-Fi that they've now, as long as you've got a Telstra phone, you can use mobile Wi-Fi and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We haven't had anybody actually come to us. We're actually in the process of discussing it with the client. But it's one of those things that we will work out when it happens type stuff. Once we've worked out whether it's a good plan and what you can do with it, then we'll have a look at it and see if we can take it out to other people as well.
So when say I'm over at the shopping centre and I'm doing doing some banking on my phone and I've hooked into the free shopping centre Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Now that would be relatively secure because it's going to the bank.
Depends. If you haven't been directed to a web page that asks you to create an account, which will then create a username and password, which will encrypt all the information,
right?
Or you haven't been given a passcode to get onto that network, I wouldn't use it for anything more than searching on the internet.
Okay, and so once you do use it, then say you do use it,
yep.
Once you use it and go home, is that then that session gone in like a puff of dust? It's not recorded anywhere. No. So for you to be hacked in that circumstance, you would have to be getting hacked as you're doing it.
Yes. Well, there's a story that came about a couple of years ago. I was in Malaysia in KL, sitting at Starbucks having a cup of coffee. Yeah. These two young guys walked in with two laptops each and they set it up in a corner. Yep. And what they were doing was they were using Wireshark to scan the actual connection that people were plugging into.
Right.
And the information they were getting was literally everything that was going over the Starbucks Wi-Fi was being captured by them. So everything they were doing on Facebook, if you were banking, if you were doing anything on your Gmail, all of that information was being captured.
But it must come through, though, as just garbage, doesn't it?
No, most of it's in plain text. If you haven't actually put a password into a Wi-Fi system and it's come up and says it's free, then there's a good chance that none of the communications that coming from the device to the internet is actually going to be encrypted at all.
But if you're, say you're on Facebook and you're responding to a couple of posts and then you switch to a Google search and then you might switch to something else, and say they're recording all this text, is it just text, just letter after letter after letter.
Streams of text, yes.
And so you'd have to sit there and I suppose say if you wanted to, go, okay, well, that's where that Facebook post ends and do things like that. Yeah, okay, right. A lot of fun by the sense of that.
They've also, the bad guys have also got systems, and the bad guys actually use big data, which is something that we have never discussed. And big data is literally the collection of everything that's happening on the network, and they have been able to create systems that read it and take out things like they know that, for instance, Australian Visa credit cards have got the first four numbers are the same.
Yep.
So they will look for a bank of those numbers and be able to bring them out and your door open. Have you got ghosts?
That's the dog pushed its way in. Got a hard head. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see what's going on there. Okay, I was going to ask you another question. So with going back to routers and everything, like most routers have a guest network.
Yeah.
Is that just purely to access a throughput to the internet?
Yes.
So
yes.
guest networks are okay?
No, same thing. Same thing. Guest networks are still, you still need to have an encryption component to it. Otherwise, anybody can come in, walk in and go, there's a guest network there. I can put my Wi-Fi on it.
Yeah.
And not only can they capture any information that's going through your guest network, but they can then use your guest network to do other things as well. So you become a host for a zombie attack and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And this is one of the things that people really can't get their heads around is the fact that they will use everything that is available to forward their needs and targets and everything else. And if it means that they can't get anything out of you, they will quite happily compromise your network, put something on it, and just use you as a zombie or a malware botnet component.
What do you think the chances are? Like, how prevalent do you think in society that someone is just roaming around with a laptop? Like trying to get this stuff. It's just kids, script kiddies or whatever with time on their hands. Just
1%.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's and that you can. There's a thing called WireWire, I think, or WireWire, which you can put on a laptop, stick it in a car, drive around, and you can find all the open Wi-Fi connections that are on around your area.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
And this is once again, this is where penetration comes into it, because if a penetration test is done against a network, they will check to make sure that you haven't got an open Wi-Fi, that you need an encryption key, that the encryption key is relatively difficult to crack, which is the other one. That when people actually get into the Wi-Fi, that they can't get into your network. And there has to be this physical demarcation between a Wi-Fi network and a normal network. Otherwise, someone gets into the Wi-Fi, they're into your whole network, and you don't want that to happen. Again, this is what you're looking for.
Yeah. So so when you come in and do a penetration test, is it just like a checklist that you've got, or is there software that probably software that you use to tick off the?
We do a lot of it. We do it in a number of levels. We have a product that we charge $5,000 for per year. And we literally do a regular, unregular system check. So in other words, one week it might be Wednesday at 2:00 in the afternoon. The next week it might be Sunday at 1:00 in the afternoon, 2:00 in the morning, that type of thing. Because we want to do it regularly, but we don't want to say, well, we're going to do it at 2:00 every week, which is something you don't want to happen. But part of that program is also we do a red team attack, which now a red team attack takes it to the next level. A red team attack involves me ringing up a client and saying, I'm from X company. We noticed that your bank account is in debit. Before I talk to you, I need to ask you your security questions.
Yes.
Most people do not realize that 90% of those are not the bank.
Right. Yes.
Because they are asking your security questions, and they might be security questions from an account as well. So they may be your Google security questions. And the other thing is, if you're relying on security questions to protect you, then if you're one of the questions is what's your favorite color? Don't give it a color. Give it a number.
Yes, right.
Okay,
right.
because you're gonna it's something that they're not going to realise. So when
Yes.
someone's, what's your favourite colour? Oh, purple. But if they put purple in, it's not going to be the same thing.
Yeah. That's tricky. So, what would you suggest? Say, because I think Telstra does that a fair bit. Because I get the Telstra calls, and as far as I know, they've been from Telstra because we've gone on and had a conversation. And they ring up and say, "Oh, yeah, is that Glenn?" And they go, "Yeah." Oh, this is Telstra. Now, just so we know, I got the right person. And they ask me the security questions. What should I be doing there? Can I ring you back? What's your extension? I'll ring you back through the normal way.
With Telstra, I don't know, to tell you the truth.
Well, with
but
generally-
one of my guys in the office actually had this interesting altercation with Telstra. They rang his mobile number. He answered it as himself. They then proceeded to ask him the security questions, and he turned around and said, "Okay, what does this? Why are you calling me?" They wouldn't tell him until he'd answer the questions.
That's
He said it's not important.
Yeah.
If you're not going to tell me what the phone call is about, I am not going to give you any specific information about me.
Yeah.
You know my mobile number and you know who I am.
Yeah.
So you initiated the call.
Yeah.
Now we have a problem. If you're not going to tell me what this is about, I am not going to verify any information. And it went on for a good 3/4 of an hour until he went,
Jeez.
I'm not going to do this. I'm going to hang up now.
Yeah.
And whatever Telstra were after.
Well, he doesn't know if it was Telstra or not. It could have been.
That's right.
It could have been a
And
scam.
today's criminals are very, very clever. And that's what people forget.
Yeah, and you got an Indian on the phone, you think, oh, yeah, it is Telstra. you get an Aussie on the phone, I'm from Telstra, what's your number? You go, oh, no way.
Yeah, that can't be.
This is a scam from way back. You're right. So, okay, so we've gone through the Wi-Fi's and all that sort of stuff. So, so the Cisco router, that would just put up firewalls. It looks for the bad stuff. It filters out the bad stuff coming in. What about things like what's that? OpenDNS. Like, is that something that you would consider putting on your system as well? Have you heard of OpenDNS?
Yes and no.
Do you want me to tell you what it is?
Yeah, shoot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, OpenDNS is just a place like a company, I suppose. And they monitor like sites for pornography and bad stuff and like child.
Oh, okay, yep.
And then they'll give you DNS numbers to put into your computer or your router, so everything goes through them. So they're out there and working, saying block this site, block that site, block this site. And then when you try and look at a blocked site, because you're going through them, they'll put up a stop and say, no,
okay,
can't do that. We've blocked it. And there's a free version, there's a paid version, you can do a bit more and all that sort of stuff. But it's a third-party, say, DNS routing, I suppose. Is that what you call it? Is DNS a big concern in this?
It is now. And in the last couple of months, DNS has really come into its fore, because if you can contaminate a DNS server anywhere on the internet, then you have anybody who's using that server being redirected to everything that the bad guys really want you to. Most of our clients, if they're not using an internal DNS, we usually point them to Google, which is 8.8.8.8, mainly because they make sure that they won't give you the splash page about going to a site that's not legal, but they will give you they literally will time out a website if you go to it that has been deemed that it's got malware on it.
Yes.
So it really is part of their search process. So if you're going through Google's DNS, the search components and the information they're removing from the internet is part of that process.
Right.
Anything like that is a really good idea. Because it does make sure that you are not going to get contaminated by other things, which is really important.
Yeah, I fixed a computer once with a virus on it, and it was a bit, it was hard to get rid of. And at the end, obviously the fix it is the last thing that you do, isn't it? So the last thing that I did after a few other things was I thought, well, let me check the DNSs here, and they had changed to whoever knows what. So the virus had come in, something has come in, changed the ladies' DNSs, and that's why we're running malware bites, we're running everything under the sun, and I'm looking here, looking there, clearing this, clearing that, just looking for it, and continually yet these things would still be coming up, and it was the DNS had changed, so we changed the DNS back to Telstra, bang, Problem solved.
Yep.
Yeah, so crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So people want to do a penetration test. How do they go about it? Ring you? Or
just ring me or email me.
Yep.
We'll quite happily come and talk to people.
Yep.
There's no obligation. We will sit down and talk to work out what is the best route. If you're too small to have a penetration test done, there are other alternatives as well.
Right.
But one of the things that is now coming into its fore for small and medium businesses is cyber insurance. And if you're looking at cyber insurance for your business, then you literally have a checklist that you have to go through. And to make that checklist a lot more palatable, I suppose is probably a nice way of putting it, you need to have a penetration test done on your network as well.
Right.
So because the small print in any insurance policy is pretty broad reaching, and if you haven't ticked off a lot of the requirements that they are saying that you have to have, then if you put in a claim, you won't get anything back, and it's just a waste of money unless you actually do something about it.
Do you go down as deep as I don't know, say interrogating printers on the network?
We go to the level of making sure that all systems have been patched, including switches and routers and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, wow.
So because it's a lot of work, but we've automated it to a level where we understand what's going to come out, and we're always updating what we're using and how we're using it as well. So.
Yeah, nice work. Okay, so I think everyone just better sit back and think about how your network is operating. Maybe for people like me, just a little small dude, maybe I might invest in a Cisco router.
Yeah.
I noticed the Telstra routers that they give out are all Netgear these days.
Yeah.
So that's not a good start, is it?
No.
No, but if you put a Cisco behind that, you should be pretty right.
Yeah, well, it then increases your the other thing about the high end routers and Cisco routers and wireless access points and all that sort of stuff is they also do a lot more. Most of them have got a unified threat management system, which is UTM, which is also your firewall. It does your intrusion detection, so it can be set up to detect things that are happening inside the network. It's got antivirus, it's got anti-spam. All of these components actually then increase your protection because of what it's doing. Instead of just being a connection and a firewall, this is actually looking at the information coming through. And it's called a second generation firewall nowadays. And they are literally what you really need to put in place.
All right, so that's a bit of a brief overview of the penetration and penetration testing. If you've got any further questions or you think that sounds like something that you need, give Roger a ring or contact him on email, Facebook or whatever.
Yep.
Otherwise, you can lunch and learn with Roger. So email him for information on when they're on and when they're recorded.
In an hour.
All that sort of stuff. What are you talking about this week?
Today I'm talking about, hang on a sec, Jesus, I've forgotten. Why do we think digital criminals are stupid?
Ah, right. I do think that, but no, I don't.
No. Well, one of our problems is we don't give them enough credit.
Yeah, fair enough. I know. They're not stupid. I know they're not. All right, well, that just about does it for another episode. So,
thanks.
Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, Glenn. Much appreciated.
And we'll see you guys next episode. Okay.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.